before the division. So, what are we going to do instead? Well, fortunately, there's a trick that lets us work around the order of operation rules and add fractions without dividing. But there's a catch. It only works for fractions that have the same bottom numbers. The trick is, if fractions have the same bottom numbers, we can add them by just adding the top numbers together and keeping the same bottom number in our answer. For example, to add 1/2 and 1/2, we just add the top numbers, and 1 plus 1 gives us 2, but we don't add the bottom numbers. We just use the same bottom number in the answer, which is 2. So 2 over 2 is a whole fraction. And that makes sense, because if you add 1/2 and 1/2, you get a whole. Let's see a few more examples, like this one, 5 over 16 plus 2 over 16. More examples, like this one, 5 over 16 plus 2 over 16. Again, since the bottom numbers are the same, it's easy to add these fractions. 5 over 16 all we do is add the top numbers together. 2 over 16. 5 plus 2 equals 7, and that's the top number of our answer. Then we just keep 16 as the bottom number of our answer. So, 5 over 16 plus 2 over 16 equals 7 over 16. Pretty easy, Again, since the bottom numbers are the same, it's easy to add these fractions. Does that work the same way? All we do is add the top numbers together. 2 over 16. 5 plus 2 equals 7, and that's the top number of our answer. Then we just keep 16 as the bottom number of our answer. So, 5 over 16 plus 2 over 16 equals 7 over 16. Pretty easy, Again, since the bottom numbers are the same, it's easy to add these fractions. Does that work the same way? All we do is add the top numbers together. 2 over 16. 5 plus 2 equals 7, and that's the top number of our answer. Then we just keep 16 as the bottom number of our answer. So, 5 over 16 plus 2 over 16 equals 7 over 16. The bottom numbers are the same. Pretty easy. All you have to do is the bottom numbers are the same. It's easy to add bottom numbers the same way. All we do is add the top. Here's an example of subtracting fractions with the same bottom number, and that's the top number of our answer. 5 over 9 minus 2 over 9. Then we just keep 16 as the bottom number of our answer. So, 5 over 16 plus 2 over 16 equals 7 over 16. The bottom numbers are the same. Pretty easy. All you have to do is the bottom numbers are First, we subtract top numbers. 5 plus 2 equals 3. Then we just write the bottom number in our answer, 9. So, 5 over 9 minus 2 over 9 is 3 over 9. Yep, adding and subtracting fractions with the bottom numbers is easy. And there's problems like this. It's called and or subtracting like actions. A true one that they're called like actions because bottoms are the same or alike. I think it's because they secretly like it. Just kidding. Like fractions are easy to add with the true. But what happens if you want to add two unlike fractions? What do you do if you have fractions with different bottoms? Unfortunately, the only way we can add unlike fractions without division first is to change them so that they do have the same bottom numbers. In other words, we need to change our unlike fractions into fractions so we can just use our trick. Imagine that's called finding a common denominator. Now remember that a denominator is just a fancy math word for the bottom number of a fraction. And common just means that they're the same. So how do we find a common denominator so that we can add or subtract unlike fractions? That's what we're going to learn in the next video. But before you move on, be sure to do the exercises for this section. Learn more at mathantics.com.
Hello, how are you? I'm very, very well, thank you. My name is Ronnie. I'm going to teach you something very easy, but a little bit confusing and difficult. Even if you have studied English or grammar for a while, I hear people make this mistake every day. Again, so this is what we're doing. When you should use she or he, or his Sorry, her or his. These are two words that a lot of people get confused. First of all, the thing or a mistake that a lot of people make is she and he. Oh, which the girl, which one's the boy? Most of you know that she's the girl, but when you speak, you mix it up and you say, my mom went to the store, he bought, what? What? Your mom's a he? What happened on the way to the store? Did something happen to your mom that changed it into a he? So be careful. She is a girl. He's a boy. Now, this is the trick. You'll remember this forever if you get this. She or he is going to be followed by a verb. Okay? So subject plus verb. She or he. So she likes, he hates. And then if you want to, you're going to write a noun, or you're going to say a noun. For example, she likes chickens. He hates apricots. He doesn't like them at all. So when you use she or he, it's going to be followed by a verb. Dun, 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 dun. When we use her or his, it's going to be followed by a noun because it is a possessive pronoun. So I can say her dog because dog is a noun. Or I can say his chicken. Then, usually, I would use a verb. For example, her dog is cute. Or his chicken, let's say we put an S, his chickens are, these are your verbs. Sexy. Sexy chicken time. So, if you need to remember, oh my God, do I say her or his or she or he? Just remember, she or he plus the verb, any verb you want, and her or his plus a noun. Remember these very simple things for English grammar. You're going to be, hallelujah, Ronnie. You saved my life. You're welcome. Stay tuned. Go to ingvid.com for a quiz on she, he, his, and hers. Till then.
Photosynthesis is perhaps the most important process on the entire planet. Not only does it allow for plants to create food for themselves from literally thin air and sunlight, it is also the only natural source of oxygen on this planet. Plants are the very first link of every food chain. That is, all other organisms, being heterotrophs, depend on plants directly or indirectly for their food. Photosynthesis, therefore, is ultimately the source of life on Earth. The four components necessary for photosynthesis to take place are chlorophyll, carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. Let us now look at the machinery within a plant that helps in putting these components together to make food. Water and minerals are present in the soil. This gets taken in by the roots. From here, the continuous path of pipe-like structures called vessels transport the water all the way up the leaves. Now that two of the required components have reached the leaf, we move on to the third essential component, carbon dioxide. If we zoom into a leaf, we see that it contains tiny pores on its surface called stomata. Carbon dioxide enters the leaf through these pores. The oxygen that is produced as a byproduct of photosynthesis also exits the leaf through these same pores. Now that all the three components have reached the leaf, we zoom into an individual cell in the leaf. This cell has a thick wall around it, which is a characteristic of plant cells. Animal cells don't have a cell wall. Within this, there is a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm, in which there are several structures such as the nucleus floating in it. However, the most important part, as far as the process of photosynthesis is concerned, is a structure called the chloroplast. It contains the chlorophyll pigment and is therefore the site where photosynthesis takes place. Chlorophyll is what gives plant their green color. And the final component, sunlight, is available to the plant during the day. Once all these components are present, the carbon dioxide and water combine in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to produce glucose and oxygen. The oxygen is a byproduct which gets used by the plant for respiration, and any excess of it gets released into the atmosphere. The glucose produced during photosynthesis may be used to produce energy for the plant, while excess of it is converted into starch and stored in leaves, roots, etc., such as in potato. The presence of carbohydrates in the form of starch in leaves indicates the occurrence of photosynthesis. When you eat rice, bread, pizza, or even some vegetable or fruit, remember the effort that a plant has gone through to make it. And when you breathe in air containing oxygen, be grateful for the plants around us.
Welcome to School of Better's Gut Health course. I'm Billy Forkingham, and this is the beginning about upper GI events. Upper GI events refer to processes that normally take place in the gastrointestinal tract, which is more commonly known as the digestive tract. The upper GI tract is made up of the mouth, throat, esophagus, stomach, and the first part of the small intestine. The mouth is where food is mixed with saliva while you are chewing. Saliva starts increasing in the mouth before you start eating, when you think about, or even when you smell food. Your sense of smell helps you taste your food, and there are taste buds on your tongue, cheeks, and the roof and back of your mouth. Saliva contains an enzyme called amylase that breaks down carbohydrates in the food you eat. When you swallow, your food travels through your throat, which is 13 centimeters long. A longer tube, called the esophagus, which measures 25 centimeters, receives food from the throat. The esophagus extends down into the stomach. The walls of the esophagus make wave-like muscle contractions that move food down towards the stomach. This process begins as soon as you swallow food. The stomach is a stretchy bag-like structure located in the upper left region of the abdomen that contains enzymes and stomach acid that promotes digestion. The stomach can temporarily expand in order to store food, and partial digestion of food takes place in this part of the GI tract. The stomach releases partially digested food into the first part of the small intestine, a C-shaped structure where additional enzymes continue to digest your food. Thank you for learning all about upper GI events. Join us for the intermediate lesson where you'll learn all about lower GI events.
Hi and welcome back to freesciencelessons.co.uk. By the end of this video, you should be able to describe the importance of mitosis. You should then be able to describe the stages of the cell cycle involving mitosis. We've already seen that both plant and animal cells contain a nucleus, and I'm showing you that here. In the nucleus, we find chromosomes, and they're made of the molecule DNA. So this cell contains 4 chromosomes. Now, one key fact is that body cells contain 2 of each chromosome. In other words, they're paired. In this cell, we can see a pair of long chromosomes here. Human body cells contain 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now, I should point out that certain cells called gametes have got chromosomes which are not paired, and we're going to look at that in a later video. So I'm showing you a close-up of a pair of chromosomes here, and that brings us to our second key point. Chromosomes carry a large number of genes, and these determine many of our features. These chromosomes only have 4 genes, but most human chromosomes contain hundreds. Now, animals and plants contain a very large number of cells, so that means that cells have to be able to divide. That's called the cell cycle. Cells can divide by either mitosis or meiosis. We'll be looking at meiosis in a later video. In this video, we're looking at mitosis. Now, the cell cycle, including mitosis, consists of 3 main stages, and you need to learn these. In the first stage of the cell cycle, the DNA replicates to form 2 copies of each chromosome. I'm showing that here. As you can see, the chromosome and the copy remain attached. The cell also grows, and it copies its internal structures, such as mitochondria and ribosomes. In the second stage of the cell cycle, mitosis takes place. One set of chromosomes is pulled to each end of the cell. The nucleus also divides. In the final stage of the cell cycle, the cytoplasm and the cell membrane divide to form 2 identical cells. So as you can see at the start, we had one cell which had 2 pairs of chromosomes, and at the end we've got 2 identical cells, again each with 2 pairs of chromosomes.